Hello, everyone. We are really excited about today's webinar, and thank you for joining us. We are going to get started here in just a moment, so feel free to come in, get settled, get your coffee, get your water, mute all your notifications, whatever you need to do, and we'll be right with you in just a moment. Just getting folks into the room now. Got our slides up here. We'll just let people give another minute here to get into the room, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Well, I think we're starting to have critical mass here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So first off, I will want to welcome everybody to a really exciting conversation with Jessica Nobles, where we talk today about the idea of creating enthusiastic caregivers, and talk a little bit about some survey work we did here at Care Academy, and really have a really engaging conversation. So it is February 2nd, otherwise known as 2222. I don't know what that means. It's probably the sign of the apocalypse. Maybe it's the sign the pandemic is actually ending. I don't know, but I thought that was really cool. So before we get started, I know this question comes up all the time. Yes, this webinar is being recorded. And a slide deck and link will be sent out after the session today. So we'll get you on that. It should be by the end of today. We'll get that out, and the recording will be a link to that as well. So I know sometimes people will like to see that and share that, of course. As far as Q&A goes, I see that we're already kicking off the chat. This is great. I love the fact that here we are in pandemic times, and the chat has become almost like a second webinar. We have the webinar where we're presenting, and then there's also the chat. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll do our very best to get them there. And there is also the Q&A piece on the bottom, which we will leverage as well. And so you can use both, and we will do it. I saw that someone has shared where they are calling in from today. That's cool. We should definitely do that as well. And Meredith, if you could just advance the slide, that would be great. So we covered that, and on to the next one. Cool. So hi, I realize I haven't introduced myself. I've been talking for a minute. I'm Aaron Dunn. I am the SVP of Marketing here at Care Academy. I've been with the company for a while now, and really excited to be joined by Jessica Nobles, who's the co-founder with her husband Clint of Home Care Ops. I'm going to give her a proper moment introduction in a little bit, but our agenda for today is pretty straightforward. We got just a slide or two about Care Academy. We'll do some, like I said, more formal introductions with Jessica. We wanted to share with the audience today the highlights from a caregiver survey that we did last fall, and sort of talk a little bit about what that means and the implications for you. and then really get into the good part of the discussion with Jessica. And I see you, Cindy, from St. Croix. I'm very jealous. I'm based here in Boston. It's cold. It is snowy. I wish I was in St. Croix. So thank you for joining. Post pictures. So a little bit about Care Academy. Again, if you're currently a Care Academy customers, we thank you for your partnership. And if you're not, of course, we'd be happy to talk to you about your training needs. Care Academy is a training and compliance platform to help you as agency owners and administrators train your care staff. Our view, I think, is shared by you, which is to really deliver high quality care. It really starts with high quality education. And so we make sure and we orient our platform to help you deliver the best possible training for your care staff. We are 100% B2B company in the sense that we sell only to agencies such as you. We don't do any direct business today. A number of different things that we offer agencies is at-a-glance insights about what's happening with your caregivers and if they're taking training or not, the ability to manage your external training. We do integrate with the leading home care agency platforms, including ClearCare, WellSky, Access Care, Alia Care, ERSP, et cetera. We'll talk a little bit about college credits in a moment. And it is a mobile-first platform, meaning that all your caregivers can access all of the training directly from their mobile device or their desktop. No mobile app required. At this point in our journey, we've trained well over 250,000 workers. We've delivered well over a million hours of training. And our focus is to help you recruit, onboard, train, and also maintain compliance. I see Gabrielle on here from Utica, New York. Shout out to the Matt's Brewing Company. I went to Hamilton College, so know that area extremely well. Thanks for joining us today from Utica. It's also very cold there. I know this. The thing that we launched last year when I mentioned training for college credit, we launched something that we called the Career Path Initiative last year. That is as a partnership today with Southern New Hampshire University, where you can actually offer as part of the training that your caregivers are taking for their daily work. Many of those training classes can be bundled together and actually used for credit for college education. Our first education partner in this program is Southern New Hampshire University. It's a lovely campus. I highly recommend that you visit. However, they are also fully enabled online, and in fact, a very, very large online university as well. So if you're in California, you don't have to go to New Hampshire. They're also one of the largest credentialers of nursing certificates in the country. So I'm really excited to bring this forward. You can learn more about it here at our website. So that's enough about us. I would love to take a moment to introduce Jessica and actually ask her to introduce herself. Many of you on this call know her, love her, have been following the journey. I just love, Jessica, how transparent and open you guys are about your own work. And so I'd love for you to, for those who aren't familiar with you, I'd love for you to do a quick introduction of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Aaron. It's so good to be here, and it's so good to have so many familiar faces in the chat. As you know, I love the chat, so keep it coming. But I have been in home care forever. I started as a caregiver for my own grandmother at a very early age. And then I've run through all the stages from a caregiver making $5.75 an hour. That was minimum wage back in the day, guys, to being a scheduler, to a manager, to a home care owner, to a franchise developer. And now I have the honor to coach hundreds of agencies across the nation on home care and best practices and truly how to take your business to the next level. So whenever I come to you, I'm very transparent with what I feel like has worked for me, what maybe hasn't worked for me, whether it be user error or not, but I want to see you succeed. I grew up in a family that it wasn't a family of entrepreneurs. We didn't make a lot of money. And to go from that to now operating multi-million, multi-state home care agencies and helping our coaching clients reach over 400 million in revenue last year. And home care is absolutely been life transforming. And to think that I started out as a caregiver making $5.75 an hour to where I am today, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I'm so passionate about what we're talking about today is how to get your caregivers bought in, how to get them enthusiastic about what you're doing and what you're doing for your team and what you're bringing to them is so important. So I'm ready to dig into today. And thank you all. I see some people, we have an incredible home care operators community on Facebook. Many of you are here from that. Thank you. So good to see you. And once again, Aaron, thank you for inviting me to be here.
Yeah, you bet. I think you and I were joking the other day that we had a meeting early on a Monday morning. Well, early in the day on a Monday morning, and I walked out. I'm like, I am ready for the week. It's gonna roll. And I was like, I need to do this call with you every Monday morning. As you like, oh, I'm a little too busy for that. But I am always personally energized and find our chats incredibly insightful. And again, I appreciate that you show up with your whole self. And I think that's really one of the things that makes the home care operators community on Facebook so valuable and interesting, because people do bring their whole self. Some of those conversations are a little challenging. I see it and you see it. And but I love that people are kind of willing to kind of put it there and put it out there. And I think that support is just really needed in the industry. And kudos to both you and Clint for building this.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. So we're going to do just a couple of minutes on this survey, and then we're going to come back and sort of talk about kind of how to make this practical and make this real for everybody on the call. And this is where I think, again, as we just said, this is where Jessica really shines. It's like, okay, so those are really cool numbers, but what do they actually mean? So let's dig into this survey. I'll tell you a little bit about the overview of the survey. And so we did this really late summer, early fall of last year. We wound up surveying over 1,500 caregivers nationally. And what we were looking to understand is, what are the key aspects of the job? What are the key people who are in these roles? And then also, how do they view education? Both ongoing education that you provide, but also educational opportunities outside of the day-to-day. And this is part of our mission to really drive forward the professional caregiving industry, and also make sure that we're collectively as an industry supporting our most important resource, and unfortunately our most scarce resource as well. We learned some incredibly interesting things, and a few of the highlights we're going to dig into today, but you can also get the full report by going to the URL here displayed on the screen, which we will share in the chat, and also kind of put through, you'll have access to it, of course, as we go. It's important to note that you don't have to register for that. You just go to that link and download the PDF in full. I want to start by making this real for folks. So here's a quick quote from one of the respondents of the survey. And one of the things that we know is that most, or maybe all, caregivers do this for the passion of helping others, not necessarily for the money. It's a calling. We hear this time and time again, and I'm sure you experience this directly. You hear Jessica's passion for it. It comes through loud and clear that, there's a passion here. There's an opportunity. There's sort of a personal mission around that. And I thought that Nicole's quote really sort of brought it home about why in her world she's connecting the interest in additional education to advancing her mission. And I think that if we have that as a frame, as we think about kind of how we enable and how we engage our caregivers and make them, as we said, enthusiastic champions, is really important. So we'll dig in a little bit to a couple of the key learnings here. First and foremost, there's a lot of numbers on these slides. I'm not going to bore you with all the numbers. The thing that matters is that caregivers want education. We can dig into the stats, they're really interesting. But this isn't necessarily that different from other industries that we see. But people want to be able to advance their careers, and they want to be able to advance their education. Now that means different things, obviously, based on where you are and how you're aspiring in your career, also as well as how you are, maybe where you are in your career and what that means. So we were a little high. We're surprised actually that this number was so high. Really overall, that was really gratifying to see. And the first reason, really shows up strongly here. I want to apply my education to make a positive impact in my community. And we saw that right in Nicole's quote from a moment ago. I was also sort of surprised that earn more money was pretty low in this list. That's a pretty low number, and there's probably lots of reasons for that. But also, the idea that they're doing the training because you recommended it that's really low. It's worth noting that not all of these respondents in the survey were, work for Care Academy customers. So there's lots of different people in this group, and so to see that that probably resonates for some folks here on this call. So look, at the end of the day, training for training's sake, offering career education opportunities for just for the sake of doing it isn't quite enough. It needs to be connected to something bigger, and so your job is to make it bigger. The next thing I want to highlight is perhaps completely the opposite of what you thought. The signal in the data here is incredibly strong that caregivers will stay if you offer them access to ongoing education support. So we'll talk a little bit about what kind of supports in a moment. This blew us away. We've heard long and the short of it, like, well, I'm a little nervous. The people who train them, they're going to leave, et cetera. If we offer them ongoing education, if I give them room to go take college credits, they're just going to leave me. And this data signal is incredibly strong that the opposite is true. They will, in fact, stay longer. Will they stay forever? Hard to know, but they will stay longer, and that's the most important part to lean into here. And so, we want to capture that momentum and capture that interest. In addition, caregivers were very clear that they will choose you as well. 90-something percentage of the caregivers that we surveyed said that knowing that you have access to ongoing education opportunities is a consideration for whether or not they're going to take that job. I would ask you for a virtual show of hands. Maybe we can put it in the chat, but how many of you actually tout your training supports and education supports as part of your recruiting strategy? It's interesting. I'm glad to see the we do's come through. That's awesome. And don't be shy. If you don't, not a problem. Like, we're learning, right? We're all in this together. So the data here that shows that showcasing everything you're doing to help them on board, get access to ongoing supports, upskilling pathways, et cetera. If you're doing those things, get it into your recruiting message, and making sure that your candidates know this. It's incredibly important. At the same time, I hate to break it to you, but most of the people we surveyed don't think that they're hearing from you about the things that you're doing. So this one might be a little bit of a tough one to swallow. They're 74% say that their employer has never talked with them about ongoing education or training. I am sure some of you on this call right now are looking at that and you're grinding your teeth. It's like, oh my God, but I do talk to my caregivers about it. I do. I talk to them all the time. And what I would suggest is they're not actually hearing you. It's not that you're not doing it, but and we're going to get into this more, but part of transforming your team into enthusiastic team members is really about engaging with them and connecting with them and meeting them where they're at, and making sure that they're hearing you. And so how you're communicating with them, I think there's a real opportunity here to create a dialogue and create engagement around what they need. And by the way, not everybody needs the same thing. And so making sure that you have a good understanding about what that individual needs and providing them with access to those opportunities that you've created. The last thing I would just share is kind of what are those obstacles and what are those supports that you can provide. Good news is you can actually help here. We'll talk about some of these things here as we get into the conversation, but certainly a number of these obstacles are completely within your control, maybe. So number 2 on this list here is work schedule. We heard very clearly that people feel sort of constrained by their schedule, that they can't take the time to take either pursue ongoing education, and so we all understand that the Tetris blocks that is your schedule and with your clients is difficult. But if you can create room for people, that's going to go a long way. Connecting it to their job role is important. Supporting them is important. These are kinds of things that you can really do to, in addition to direct financial support, to help create room. And when we talk about education supports, it's not just about Care Academy training. Actually, that's a really small piece of it. It's more about how do you support them in their learning journey. And I'm gonna before we shift into really kind of the Q&A here, discussion with Jessica. I'm going to leave everyone with this quote here. This is someone who we surveyed who gave us, this insight. I've been with my company for 15 years and I'm considering leaving for a company that will pay 80% of my education. Now, 80% is a lot. But this is an actual quote. And, this is someone who's a 15-year veteran. It's probably someone you've invested in. This is someone who's probably a great team member if they've been there that long with you. And despite it all, she's looking to leave. And that's the challenge, right? You work so hard to get them in, you work so hard to keep them. And we're not necessarily pulling all the different levers to make sure that they're enthusiastic, they're engaged, and they're driving forward. So love to bring in Jessica here. And you've been listening to all this. I love your reaction to this quote. Like, what does this say to you? Oh yeah, cool. Now we're in my living room. Welcome to my living room, Jessica. This is actually my living room.
Well, thank you, and welcome to my living room as well.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so I love this, and I want to take just a minute, and I want to interpret the numbers into action. What those actions should look like for us as home care owners, now that we are really listening to what our caregivers are saying, what the data is showing. So starting from 70% of caregivers say they are interested in advancing their education. 70%. And I know many of you on here right now, you can give me an amen over there in the comments. If you're like, I wish 70% of my caregivers would actually just get in and finish the training that I've already assigned them to do. But whenever you hear that the largest percentage say the reason they want to further their education is to apply my education to make a positive impact in my community. What does that look like? That means that your agency, we have a mission statement that we probably say and we train on an orientation, but we are not getting our caregivers enrolled in what our mission and our intentions truly is. And so I think for us as a home care owner, let's listen to that and listen to what our caregivers are saying and say, how can I, as a home care owner, as the recruiter, as the operations manager, what can I do in my agency so that our care team also feels enrolled in our mission? We impact the community. Who can raise your digital hand via a comment and say, I make an impact in my community. I'm changing the lives of the seniors I help. I am giving respite and hope to the families I help. That is an impact. So we need to make sure that that messaging is going out to our caregivers, that our communication and then our process and the experience that we provide to our caregivers, that's something that they actually feel like that's a part of what they're doing. And then I love it where it's 85% of caregivers say they're more likely to stay with their current employer if offered resources to further their education. You know what that tells me? Caregivers are wanting us to say, and the next step is. And the next step is. Whenever they come into our agencies, if they feel like they are just doing that position temporarily while they discover what they're really wanting to do, or they're going to do that because they don't know what else to do, or they enjoy helping people, but they don't really know what next step they should really take. And they're looking for that guidance. They're looking for that education. So if we, within our training, within our offering and our employee value proposition, if we give them a way that they can say, oh, I'm working as a care provider now, but my next step could be furthering my education. Maybe it's through college tuition. Maybe it's through the hierarchy structure that your company may have or should look into creating. So, and then 94% of caregivers say that access to further education is an important consideration to accepting a job offer. Do you know why that is? It's because whenever they commit and invest their time into joining your team, They want to know that they're going to get that investment back. And something that we say to our, like when we're onboarding and we're hiring, the very first call when an applicant calls in, or we call an applicant, is we ask them in the process of the questions, over the next week, could you commit to coming in for an interview? And then when they come into the interview, we say, thank you for investing in yourself and investing time in our team. Because you know what we do at orientation? We say, you were committed from day one. You were invested from the first day you stepped foot in here. And now it's time for us to commit and invest in you and show you what the next step is to growing in our agency and growing your own professional goals. We want to hear from you. What are some goals? What are some things that you want to do? What is your passion? That's what orientation looks like. It's getting that enrollment and buy-in from our care team. So whenever you match actions with the data, you can begin to see that the experience that we create, the process of onboarding and enrolling our care team and then maintaining them, matched with our intent. What is our intent? Our intent is to make our caregivers feel valued, see the value, have our respect and validation. And they want to know that we believe in them to invest in them. So I love when data really backs up those numbers and it makes us stop and say, hey, wait, like they do want training. I'm just not delivering it the right way. I'm not communicating the impact in the right way. So what can I do? What can I tweak? And what I'm currently doing to make sure that that messaging is coming across. So, and I think it goes when Evelyn, when she made the statement, I have been with my company for over 15 years, and I'm considering leaving for a company that will pay 80% of my education for 15 years. If someone would have just said, hey, Evelyn, we appreciate what you're doing. And the next step is, whether it be, Evelyn, you've been with us for 3 years. Long before the 15 years. We want to make sure that what we're doing and what we're offering aligns with your own personal goals. How can we help you achieve your personal goals? We would have known that she wanted to go beyond that. She wasn't just happy going to being a caregiver. We sometimes feel so disconnected from our staff, from our team, because we don't see them in the office every day. We're not talking with them every day. That we think they're happy when all along they're over there saying, hey, I want more, I need more. And we have the ability to give it to them. We've just got to be open, listen to what they want, and then make sure that we're utilizing all the resources. And I tell you, for everybody right now who is a Care Academy user, there are so many ways that you can use Care Academy training for your hierarchy, for upward mobility, for bonuses, for marketing. And so if you're just plugging your caregivers in as, oh, this is part of the process, it's part of compliance, here you go, we'll need this done in the next 2 weeks, over the next 30 days. We'll remind you if you don't get it done. Like you can, it's real convenient, just do it on your phone, when you're washing dishes or something. If it's not important to you, it's going to be even less important to them.
I want to sort of double click on that and give you room to kind of continue. But I love a lot of folks that we talk to, and maybe some folks will comment on this in the chat. A lot of folks that we talk to are focused on training for compliance as opposed to training for skills building. And I love your perspective, Jessica, on kind of what you see to be the most successful and kind of maybe how agencies can think about, more holistically, compliance, of course, it has to be done if you're in a state that has compliance requirements, but how you can sort of move beyond that. And again, using a training provider or not, there's lots of ways to do that. But I'd love your perspective on kind of the opportunity there. And also just a reminder to folks, we have the chat, but we also have the Q&A function. So if people want to add questions to the Q&A, we will take those as well.
Yeah,
So what do you think?
absolutely.
Moving beyond training for compliance to training for skills building, is that an opportunity for folks?
Absolutely. And I think it's not and or, it's for both. Training for client compliance, there's a reason that it's compliant, it's a requirement. We've got to do it. It's because it's important. So often we think we've got to have training for compliance. Oh, but then we've got to go actually make sure they understand the important training that's not necessary compliance. It's all important. But also, whenever you're doing training, rather than thinking that it's for compliance, and even for skills is obviously very important. We want to make sure that our care providers are skilled and they're competent, but also it is a way that we can connect and engage with our care providers. So it's not just about throwing them this course that they've got to work down the hours or just so that they can get a certification. It's so that they actually learn and grow and develop. Because it's something that we don't call our recruiter a recruiter, we call her a team developer in our agencies. Because we don't want to just hire people, we want to retain them. And whenever at our orientation, we always say our goal is to get you to care lead within the first 90 days. Within the first 90 days of you being with our agency, we want to get you to that care lead position. Not only do you have more flexibility, more benefits, and I mean, who doesn't love, a dollar raise? But it's so that we can make sure that we are meeting your needs. You want to grow, you want upward mobility, and we use our training to make sure that you receive what you need. And for us, we do some training is we actually train our team on how to look for talent so that they are our biggest recruitment. Our biggest leads actually come from our care team itself because it's just a part of training. And then we have our online training that's very, very convenient to say that we say, hey, look, you can do this training in your free time. You still get paid for it, but I don't want you just clicking and then walking away and finishing the dishes and tuning it out till it gets to like a quiz or something where it takes an action from you. So we make it fun and we take out little Easter eggs of the training. We know what our people are being trained on. We take out these little Easter eggs. And I remember whenever, if it's not still in your training, you need to go back, remake it, put it in there. But there's this part in your training where you teach people on how to transfer people from a car seat, like from a vehicle to a wheelchair. And they were like, put down a black garbage bag in the seat before you set them down. That way it's easy to slide them around and get their legs out on the ground and then get them moved over. Like it makes them so much easier to slide. So it was just a little bitty clip. Like they didn't go into full detail, anything like that. But what we would do in orientation is we would say, okay, when you get to that part in training where we show you how to move a body with a black trash bag, I don't care what time it is. I want you to text our caregiver number and be like, oh my God, I found out what the black trash bag and the body's all about. And whenever we would get that in, we would enter them to win a prize. And the prize wasn't something that had our brand swag on it or anything like that. It was like a Michael Kors purse or a mani pedi or a trip to the golf course, something that they felt like it was for them. We thought about what they wanted, and we would have a drawing every month that would build that engagement. And they listened to the training. They would like be listening for each thing. And we would go in and our team recruiter would check the training to see, okay, how many hours, if they weren't moving forward, she would reach out and say, hey, we see you're not doing the training. If you find it boring, I want you to come tell me directly. Like we can liven this thing up. We would be really real with them because we wanted to make sure that they were consuming the information. And so the training is about what you make it. It doesn't matter how great the platform is if it's not important to us, important enough to invest effort in getting our team enrolled in it and seeing the important. Because remember, we already know the data states that most people want training to make a bigger impact in their community. We've got to make them believe that by doing this training, that they can make a bigger impact in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's sort of connecting to their why.
Exactly.
So, you have, as an agency, you have your own why, right? But the individual caregivers, they have a why as well. And so the more you can connect to that, I think is sort of your point there. Like they're finding it, valuable for them.
Absolutely.
So I want to come back to the quote we heard a minute ago about the 80%. That's a big number, by the way, tuition reimbursement. That's but so leaving aside sort of training that you provide as kind of your normal course of business, I'd love to see, if people want to comment in the chat, if they're offering sort of external tuition reimbursement. You go take a class outside the business, either for a CNA certificate or higher education or community college class, or I don't know if somebody wants to become a blacksmith. It'd be interesting to see from folks from the audience here, how many of you are offering that. But what we've heard, and perhaps you've heard as well, Jessica, is that, despite the perhaps the willingness to offer these kinds of things, you might be, the feeling is I can't afford it, or it's a waste of money, or I offer them and they don't take it, and what if they leave after I just spend all this money in a tuition reimbursement. From your perspective, Jessica, should folks really try to lean in on this tuition reimbursement piece? Is it something that is a lever that agencies should be taking advantage of?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's a benefit. And I mean, first off, it is a tax write-off. For those of you, we as business owners, we all love our tax write-offs. So keep that in mind. It is investing in your team. And I love actually making the tuition part of it be part of the incentives. Now, I'm not just going to hire someone tomorrow and then have them come into orientation and then be like, oh, I actually want to become a blacksmith. And then I say, oh, well, then I'm just going to send you and pay for your training. I'm not going to do that. Now, I am going to come in, and if they say, oh, I would actually love to be a blacksmith at some point in time, then I'm going to see what I currently have based on my professional solutions that will align with them. And first it would be, okay, get in here, and we want you to grow within our agency. I don't know how blacksmithing has anything to do with home care. But I do know that when you learn, whenever you apply yourself to something and you are committed to something, and what you learn within our agency, as far as what we teach in orientation, we teach them how to have a professional conversation, how to overcome challenges. I'm absolutely certain there's going to be something that you can apply to your life goals. And we want to invest in you. We know that you're investing in our team, you're investing in our growth by being a member of our team. We want to make sure that we're listening to what you want. Now, if you choose to offer a tuition program that covers any type, like Aaron said, blacksmithing, then find a way for it to align with your values and mission. Like for us, we don't offer blacksmithing tuition. Actually, never even crossed my mind. I would
think a better example.
I would really have to think about that one. But now we do have like CNAs, LPNs, RNs. We have, and the amazing thing is, I've been in this agency long and in home care long enough to have had caregivers come in who become CNAs, who then become LPNs that are now the RNs that do all of our long-term care orders, and they oversee our clients in the states where we've got to have a nurse on board because we give them that upward mobility. Now, having someone coming in and right away offering the tuition, maybe it may not be beneficial. I think the first thing you should do is focus on getting them trained on how they can become a better care provider and a better team member on your team. That's the first step. When they prove they can do that, then you can start talking about tuition, whether it be CNA, RN, LPN, and that can go right into your hierarchy structure. And you can absolutely, when you're recruiting, as you're marketing and orientation, you can say, hey, we offer a tuition reimbursement plan, and have it to where either they have reached the next part of hierarchy, or they've been with you for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever works best for your agency. But make the education that you're offering them also tether them to your agency in some way. That way they feel like, wow, okay, they believe in me, so they're investing in me, and I am sticking with them. We are a team. Like they see value in what I do. I see value in this agency because of that. And there I have had many caregivers who come in, they were like the bomb. And when they come in, they started the tuition, they got their CNA, and then they started LPN, and they went down in hours, and there was a part of me that was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm like losing my best team members because I basically paid for them
Yep.
to leave. But what I realized is that by investing in them and by creating that path where they come in, they were a care provider, they were promoted to care lead. In the care lead, they were able to have that tuition access and then also become a care manager where they could manage their hours, be more flexible. They were also walking straight into the places where I needed to be recruiting caregivers, and they become our biggest recruitment. And then as they were RNs working with home health companies, they become our biggest lead generator.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that with tuition, yes, it's an investment when it is tax write-off. And number two, don't offer it if you don't actually know what your intentions are. It's not just about offering it, because otherwise you may offer it and either one, people will take advantage of it, or people will be like, why would I even want to do that?
Right.
But as long as you know what your intentions and your desired outcome for that is for your agency, and then how does it benefit the care provider, it can really be a great way to attract people and retain them for the long term.
Yeah. And, it's an interesting point that you made there is you got, even though they went down in hours, at whatever point they sort of became a fully activated CNA and LPN, you got the benefit of their service, their bomb as stability as a caregiver for all that time that it took them. And I think that's an important consideration. We'll share the link later, but we put together a quick calculator people can use. The break-even point on particularly since the tax write-off, the break-even point on tuition reimbursement is pretty fast. So you don't necessarily need them to stay for 4 years. You just need them to stay a little longer. I was joking about the blacksmith class, maybe a paramedic class is a better one, but you could probably make the business case that if someone is scratching their itch to be a blacksmith on the weekends, and you gave them $500 and they were going to stay with you for another year, that was probably $500 worth spending. Again, I don't know how many, it's probably a sort of a silly discussion, but now I want to take blacksmith classes. So I don't know why. Hey, so we actually are getting some questions in the Q&A as well as in the chat function. So I want to just keep an eye on the clock as well. This has been a great conversation. I'm going to switch over and take a couple questions from the audience. And again, please do use either the chat or the Q&A function. We're keeping we're keeping an eye on both. And Nikki asks, you mentioned, Jessica, earlier about training your field staff, your care staff to actually be also recruiters. So, can you talk a little bit about kind of how you set that up? How do you make sure that they do it? How do you enable them? Since that's clearly working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So within our company, and it's something that we teach our action leaders and master operators in our coaching clients, but to have a hierarchy where it's care lead, you come in as what we call ours care providers, not just caregivers, care providers to care lead to care manager. And we have that hierarchy structure so that we have that. And the next step is, and the next step is, and the next step is. So whenever they get promoted to care lead, which is where we aim to get everybody in the first 90 days. In the first 90 days, we want to get them pumping and cranking because we know if we can retain them for the first 90 days, that they're probably going to be with us for a while. But how we get them to recruit talent is we bring them in to the office, or you can do it online. We've done it both ways. And we tell them, hey, you guys, we've already established they are more than just caregivers. That's why we call them care providers. And you are an important part of our team. There is no one who could recruit better for our agency than you. Not only do you understand who we're looking for, you are who we're looking for. So when you are at town, when you're at a doctor's office, a dentist's office, a gas station, depending on what state you're in, whether you can hire people and train them, or whether you need CNAs will depend on how you teach this. But we teach them on how to notice talent, notice someone who would be good, and then how to connect them to us. So we don't tell them to stand in the grocery store line and say, hey, you would make a good, caregiver. You can come work for our agency. We pay $15 an hour, da, 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 da. But we teach them how to connect them directly to us and how to upsell and how to sell them on our agency and the team. Now, that serves two purposes. We are literally explaining to our current team how we want them to feel about us, like how we want them to talk about us. So it's a twofold training. And then we teach them on how to look for talent, how to connect talent to us, and how to get those people that they're talking to buy into us before they ever meet us. And we have a like a recruitment line that has a text and a phone number. And they even tell the people, hey, actually, you can just text so-and-so, like text Holly directly and let her know that I sent you so she can get to you right away. We teach them how to make the people that they're talking to feel important before we even walk in. And it's a training program like we have. And it's only a 1 hour training. It's a 1 hour training to where we focus on getting them to know how to talk to other people who would be potential applicants, potential team members, and get them bought into what we do. And it affects every aspect, because then that caregiver knows how to talk to the client about our services. They know how to talk to the doctors whenever they go in with the clients, whenever they have doctor's appointments. They know how to talk to the people that they're meeting about our agency. And it also is a steady recruitment. And you don't know how many times where we've gotten voicemails and texts where it says, hey, so-and-so met me the other day while I was in the waiting room at the hospital. She talked about how great you were to work for. I would absolutely love to come work for you. And if they don't get a response in like 2 hours, they'll be texting again and say, hey, I don't mean to bug you, but I just want to make sure you got my text. Like, they're excited before they ever meet us, before they ever see an ad, because someone on our team talked about how great we were. And then we also incentivize it for the caregivers who recommend. We give them a bonus for when it comes in, and a bonus for if that care member stays for 6 months. And I tell you, it is far, far, far less of an investment than constantly trying new ads and going to job fairs and throwing money in the wind, hoping to God that it like sticks on something.
Well, and everybody on the call is it wants to know if you will share how much of the bonus you give.
How much of a bonus we give? It's not a whole lot. Yeah. It is $50 to $100 depending on where they are.
Yeah.
In our agency. Now we actually give more at the 6 month retention, and we don't tell them up front they're getting it. It's a surprise and delight. Oh. Now they quickly learn they're going, but if they refer a caregiver and they stay with us for 6 months, the caregiver who referred that person gets a $100 bonus as a surprise. They don't know it's coming. So, and that's something that as soon as they get that $100, and we send them, and we actually send them a message, a letter, like a physical letter that says, hey, you have got a $100 bonus for referring someone who is absolutely perfect for our team. They've been here for 6 months. We're celebrating them and we're celebrating you. And you know what? Suddenly that person is back at it again. And they're like, who can I find to recruit? Yeah. So the team is not only working for us to recruit, they're working with us to make sure that our level of satisfaction and retention across the board is up. So
yeah, that's great. And
we are.
Go ahead.
With me and Clint, and for those of you who don't know home care ops and what we're about, we're operations. And whenever you realize that operations moves every aspect of your business, then you're not just looking at recruiting as recruiting. You're not just looking at doing training as just doing training. You're looking at, okay, here's the gear of training, turning this gear of recruiting, turning this gear of marketing, turning the other gear of satisfaction. And you can do a lot less and get a far greater impact, because if you work on one area of your business, it affects every area of your business in a positive way. But unfortunately, it works the opposite way too. If you don't understand how operations drives every aspect of your business, then when you feel like you're totally losing control over here, it begins negatively affecting every part of your business. And you're over here trying to figure out what's going on. Like, why am I losing control over here when it was just right here?
Yeah. You know, I think what's really interesting to me is, and thank you for sharing kind of how much your sign-up bonuses or referral bonuses. It's not a lot of money. And I think sometimes we get a little bit wrapped up in like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And like, oh, I can't afford $1,000 or something. But you know what? If you're making an impact, to your point, surprise and delight, the numbers, it's not always about the number. It's more about the fact that you thought to do it. And I imagine that your team appreciates that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And start with where you can. I mean, definitely don't over deliver. Over promise something that you can't deliver consistently. Consistency is way more important than a real big flashbang and then it's over. So be consistent in whatever you decide to do. And I'll tell you, appreciation and validation is one of the biggest ways to show that you appreciate your team. When you take the time to personalize something, whether it be a handwritten card or a text message that isn't going out to everybody and they know it, but it's truly seeing them as an individual person and as an asset to your overall team. Like that one individual person is an overall asset to your entire team. Like when they know you truly feel that way about them, they will recruit. You will have retention. And you'll have improved satisfaction with your clients.
You know, it's interesting. I would imagine, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth on this call, but when you think about like, creating enthusiastic caregivers, it sort of sounds soft, like it's a soft skill. It's not measurable. It's, well, I don't know, if I invest, does it work? And yet you just, without even thinking about it, you just articulated 3 very concrete business benefits to making sure that you invest that time, effort, et cetera, up front in creating that, that set of enthusiastic caregivers. And, I think it's really important for people to take away from here. There's all this talk about measure what matters, et cetera. And, how do I measure some of the softer skills like retention, turnover, hiring efficiency, expanding your billable hours? Those are all outcomes, from having an engaged and enthusiastic care staff. It's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Your team is truly your greatest aspect. And we say this a lot with our coaching clients is, as owners, you are your business. Your business's biggest asset. You are, as the owner. You got to take care of yourself. But your team is your biggest asset, because we can't run a business alone. We can't build and grow an agency alone. And we can't do it with 3 or 4 people in the office. It truly takes our entire care team working together. Mm-hmm. And whenever you have your care team on board, when you're thinking about the experience, the process, the intent, and the communication, and you really think about it and you evaluate it and think, how can I improve the overall experience that my care team is feeling and experiencing? I guarantee you that affects every single aspect of your business. From the call outs, the client dissatisfaction, your bottom line labor. I mean, last year with recruitment, and everybody felt like it was so incredibly challenging to recruit, that affected a lot of people's bottom line. Their net profit dropped drastically because they felt like that they were like bribing, begging, paying out the wazoo just to stay afloat. When if they would have really stepped back and thought, okay, is my experience, my process, my intent, and my communication, like what in that do I need to evaluate? to make sure that I am not compromising on quality. I'm not compromising on consistency. And I am not doing all of this to go into the red.
Yeah, that's not the point. Hey, so I'm keeping an eye on the clock. We just got a couple of minutes left. I did want to see if we couldn't address one last question here from the audience. But I'm also time limiting the answer here, Jessica. So, the question comes in from Kat. She asks, we have several caregivers that aren't tech savvy and they have a hard time getting to or through their training. What have you seen, Jessica? How do you kind of meet people where they're at in that way, and support caregivers with multiple ranges of sort of skills in this area?
Yeah, well, when it comes to tech savvy, I still like for them to do it the same way that all the other ones have done it, except rather than having them do it on their phone or struggle with it at home, we actually schedule them in hours in the office where they come in and we walk them through step by step whenever they get stuck. Across the board, it's the most consistent thing to do. And we know when those training hours would be in the case that people really need that. What we find is whenever people realize they've got to come and sit in the office to do the training, they are a lot more quick to pick up on the process so they can do it at home.
So maybe some of them are maybe more tech savvy than they're letting on.
Yeah. It's just an inconvenience to try to figure it out at home, but when they know they've got to come into the office and figure it out there, they figure it out there pretty quickly and then finish it at home.
I like it.
But that's a really quick, easy way to overcome it.
Got it. So, and someone just commented that Janet asked if you're from Michigan because you said Wazoo. So, so as we kind of begin to wind down here, I'd love, so Jessica, some closing thoughts from you. I know people have been listening intently. They're taking careful notes, so they're going to grab the recording. And some folks are listening to this and saying, I do all this, and yet it doesn't seem to make a difference. Turnover's up, retention's low. What else can we offer people to kind of help them through that, that challenge? Yeah,
well, the first thing I encourage you to do is we are having a free masterclass on next week. You can just go to homecaremasterclass.com, www.homecaremasterclass.com. It is a free masterclass, and we're going to be talking about how you can communicate, how you can delegate, and how you can get your team on board with how you need it done, how you want it done, and how you can communicate that to your team effectively. I feel like that would be a really good way. If you feel like everything we talked about today, if you feel like your experience is on point, your process, you understand your intentions and you are communicating that, it's coming through in your messaging. Like if you feel like you're doing all of that and it's still not ticking those boxes and you feel like you're running through fire with like your entire team on your back and you're barely surviving, you definitely want to join in that masterclass because you'll get a lot of tips there.
And it's free.
And it's free. Yeah, it's free. It's a lot of good information that you'll get for free. So, and it's www.homecaremasterclass.com. Also, there's an entire community, over 4,000 home care owners that can help you brainstorm and pinpoint maybe an issue that you have in our home care operators community on Facebook. Like it's a free community. You just go request to join, and we'll get your request approved as soon as we can, as soon as possible. But let an entire community of thousands of people who are doing exactly what you're doing right now help you walk through it to see, okay, maybe it's just a missing link. Maybe it's a messaging problem. Maybe you're just exhausted and burnt out, and you're not taking the time to celebrate the small wins that you're actually having. Sometimes that can be the issue, but
I love it.
Consistency, like,
and try some things. I like it.
Yes. Persistency and consistency. It works together. Persistent and consistent, with clarity and intention is what will help you move the dial and improve your recruitment and your retention, your overall satisfaction rates.
Love it. I think that's a great place to leave it. We do have right here at the end of this deck, we have a link. So for when you get this later, we have a link to a calculator we put together for folks to use on our website, also free. Where if you want to put in your own business variables, it'll tell you kind of what your break-even point is, and so you can start to structure agreements with with your care team if you want to offer direct tuition reimbursement. And then we also included on the next slide just a quick summary of some of the things that Jessica shared with you today, and to help you as a reminder. We covered a lot of ground today. It was super exciting, Jessica. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. It was always great to have this conversation. I know this is a topic you're passionate about generally. We didn't get to every question in the chat. I'm sorry, but we will take notes of them, and if we can follow up directly, we will. A couple of them questions were to you, Jessica, so we'll feed them over to you. Cannot recommend enough the home care operators community. It is a great opportunity for each of you. So if you're not already a member there, I highly recommend it. We're big fans. So Jessica, thank you so much today, and we look forward to seeing you and everybody on this call down the road.
Well, thank you so much. And it was a pleasure. And I look forward to connecting with everyone in the home care operators community.
Fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your day, all. Take care. Bye-bye.